Hi, I'm case number 2666, and I am here to tell my story.
Can you tell me how you ended up here?
Yeah, it was the early 90s. My parents and my brothers, we came over for the same reason that most people come here, for financial reasons. I was 8 years old, I was in third grade, I was on the verge of turning 9, and I remember my parents actually sitting myself and my five brothers down and telling us that we were gonna leave to the United States. I knew that they owed a lot of money to a lot of people, and I knew that we would be coming to a different part of the world, and that what that entailed. And because we were a really big family, and we were really poor, we couldn't afford, or my parents couldn't afford for all of us to come at the same time. So I was the fourth of six boys, and I remember my parents sitting us down one day and telling us we're going to leave for the United States really soon, and don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody that we're leaving, because like I said, they owed a lot of money to a lot of people. And I just remember one day they took us out of school, and they told us we weren't going back to school anymore. And that same night, this was like in September, October, and we packed all our things and said we're leaving tomorrow because the creditors are coming for us and the people that we owe are coming for us. And we like literally snuck out in the middle of the night. We packed everything we could into bags and backpacks and stuff like that, and we snuck out of that city at like 2, 3 in the morning. And we walked to a bus station. It was a couple miles down, and we all, my brothers and myself and my parents, all sat down like we're gonna be scattered amongst aunts and uncles, because originally it was only my mom and my dad coming over, then they was sent for us. So we, three of my brothers were left with my grandmother on my mom's side, and one of my other brothers was sent with my uncles on my dad's side. And I, I was, I came along with my parents mainly because I had a broken foot, and I remember we got on a train from Guadalajara to Mexicali, and we took this train, and I remember my mom and my dad sitting with them on the trip. It was like a 3-day trip or something. My mom and my dad going back and forth, having arguments. My dad saying, oh, we can go back and get, the rest of my brothers, or, we can go back home and stay there. And my mom's like, no, no, we have to go, we have to go. And I just remember my mom just bawling her eyes out because she was leaving, 5 children behind. But we got here, we came to Tijuana, and from Tijuana, I was handed on to my uncles, who I had papers from one of my cousins, and that's how I crossed with my uncles. And then my parents crossed by running across the border. I met up with them after we got here to the States about 2 days later. And from then on, once we got here, I knew that it was going to be a different life. But for my mom and my dad, I remember just leaving my brothers behind for, these reasons that we couldn't afford to fetch for them, and we had to wait a good 5, 6 months before we can make enough, before they can make enough money to fetch for my brothers back home.
Can you tell me a little bit about your educational history in the United States?
Yeah, I started in 4th grade when we got here, and I was placed in the ESL classes. But I was able to pick up the language really quickly, because I remember by the time my brothers got here, like 6 months later, I was doing really well because I had to introduce them to their teachers and their classmates and stuff like that. So, 4th grade, elementary school, middle school, high school, and I did very well. I excelled in mostly like English and language science, stuff like that. I remember high school. Like, I always knew that I was undocumented, and I knew my situation, what that meant, and how that limited me. It didn't really like dawn on me as to how hard my life would be up until like I was getting ready to graduate from high school, and what that would mean for the rest of my life, or what would I do as to either going to college or just getting a job. But I decided taking some GE classes at local community college, and from then on I was able to transfer to a 4-year university and major in a field that I really felt passionate about.
And how does this all make you feel?
Well, it's really, I think specifically the undocumented student identity was always really hard for me, I guess. It was that dichotomy of being an AB 540 student and being a college student. I felt like, which is something, I guess, that entails to undocumented immigrant identity. That's something that when I was a college student, I felt like I had a place. Like I felt like there's all these buildings here and like all these really smart people at the university, and all the professors, but once I left campus, I would go back home. I just felt like I'm just like an undocumented immigrant again, and I have to like face all these struggles. Not being able to drive, not being able to get a driver's license and get an ID. So when I was in college, and even now, I feel like I've always lived in this two different worlds, and like neither really made me, even the college experience didn't help me. It didn't make me feel any better. That the fact that even though I graduated and I have a degree hanging on a wall somewhere, it makes me feel really, sometimes, and it's always psychological. Either it goes through stages of depression, and then anger at my parents, anger at the system, and it's always cyclical. So the emotions are always ups and downs, day to day.
And what would the DREAM Act mean to you if it was passed today?
It would actually mean a lot to me. I would have a pathway to residency, and not have to live in the shadows, and not have to live in shame or fear that just driving down the street will get me in trouble, or having to be deported, or all these little things that unless you live in this situation, you wouldn't understand, because it becomes a very abstract concept to have to explain to somebody. I don't feel like driving there because I'm kind of like scared to I see a lot of checkpoints coming up recently because it's a holiday weekend or something, and have to live with that in that mentality, and that it makes me feel like there's a sense of unfairness, and it makes me feel, and it makes you feel ashamed, and sometimes it makes you feel just depressed, because there's nothing you can do about it. It's something it's this identity that's been imposed upon you, and you're trying your best and you're trying your hardest to get out of the situation by going to school, by having a job, by contributing to your community and volunteer and all this other stuff. And at the same time, it's like they don't want us here. It's like and you grow up being told that if you work really hard, good things will happen to you. If you're kind, good things will happen to you. And sometimes it makes you feel like really depressed, because there's so many people in my situation that it's not true, that America isn't really a meritocracy, that you're just an undocumented immigrant. So it makes you feel very like it's unfair, but life isn't really fair, and life isn't easy. So the only thing you can do is continue to be in the struggle and the movement, and legislation like the DREAM Act would actually help a lot for myself and for all the students or the people that are in my situation.
And what are your aspirations for the future?
I majored in a field that's something I'm really passionate about, in journalism. Ideally, if the DREAM Act were to pass, my first thing to do will be to get a job via my field of work of journalism. So ideally will be to do that, to work for a newspaper or a magazine, and not only that, but just to be able to contribute back to my community through any job that I can get. which is the ultimate aspiration, really.